This is a new thing we're doing called Third Thursday Talks. And the idea is that we have so many great, talented consultants who can learn from each other. I think during COVID, we haven't had the opportunity to have as many events to get people together. So this is a way to bring you to the rest of the community.
Cool.
And when we had met before, I thought your story was really interesting and kind of inspiring. So I thought, let's just ask Adam a few questions. How did you get into consulting and what you're doing right now?
So I lived in Japan for 20 years. So I went there, worked for the government for a few years, and I was a teacher in the Bay Area before I went. And I taught there for 3 years, and then during that time met my now wife. And when those contracts ended, we decided to start the first of our schools. And so kind of built those schools, and not kind of built those schools, and ended up selling them about 18 years later. So in the interim, so at that kind of the end of that time in Japan, my family and I, we were talking basically about the transition back to here. And I guess, yeah, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and worked from when I was 12 in our coffee shop. Our major competition was Peet's Coffee. Back then, it wasn't as large as Starbucks or Peet's is now. But anyway, I was, I guess, one of the first baristas, weirdly. So anyway, your question of how did I get into this? I think it was just knowing that I was more comfortable with 100 or 200 bosses than just one boss. A long time ago, I read the Kiyosaki book about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And basically he talked about the same thing, which was his father taught in academia. And then in academia, you can, even if you have tenure, you can get removed, right? If you make an enemy who's above you and they're really focused on getting you out, then you can get stuck, and you can be in your 50s and now what do you do, kind of thing. So I was always under the impression, anyway, while in Japan, I had many offers like that to come work for whatever college or whatever school. And I was always worried about, it sounds great, but what happens if my boss changes and now we don't get along for some weird reason. So I always liked the idea of having multiple bosses, basically.
Yeah.
So if somebody doesn't like me, okay, I can just move on and find another one. It's okay.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that, either from their past work life, where it might not even be somebody trying to move you out. Maybe it's somebody who doesn't believe in you and doesn't think that you're worthy of a promotion or advancing. And we know there's all sorts of ceilings, depending on, if you're a female or minority. And so there's that layer that you don't have to worry about as much if you go out on your own. So you did say something when we met last that I really liked, where you were saying anybody can do this.
Yeah, I don't understand. So I have many friends who work in tech, and they're around my age. And whenever we, go to a dinner party or party, groups of them gather and who work at the same company, and kind of the theme of many of their discussions is now they're in their 50s and now they start worrying about getting pushed out. They understand that they are, compared to younger people, maybe overpaid, and that worry in them starts rising. And so in those groups, there's people who have been pushed out and now, they're struggling or not, whatever that it is. But underlying their conversations is that fear of, I'm in my mid 50s. this definitely happened to one of my best friends here. He worked for a big tech company. They for 20 plus years, and they started telling him, this was before the pandemic, they started telling him, okay, you're gonna have to come into the office now, more than whatever once a month. And for him, that would mean a 2-hour plus drive one way. And they were like, okay, so we're gonna need you to start doing that once a week. And he was like, all of my team are international. So why do you need, that was just the new policy for him. And then he and his wife, they're gonna have another baby. And then the company said, okay, great, your wife works here too, we know that. We're gonna need you to move to Phoenix. Your wife can stay here. Thanks. And basically they were making it really impossible for him to work there.
Yeah.
So that was, that was his life. They gave him severance, and he's out the door at whatever, 54 years old, without a job and just freaked. So now he has a choice to make about going to another company at much lower pay with no, supposed,
right.
That idea of, we're a family, we're here for you, we're a team. In my opinion, that's all a way to get workers to devote their life to the business or to that company, but there's really no loyalty.
Yeah.
You're just another, in my thing is, you're just another stapler.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're a great stapler. But
that's very true. And we meet with hundreds of people who have fallen out of full-time work for different reasons.
Sure.
For some people, it's not an unfortunate circumstance like that. Instead, it's maybe a calling to want a life where you have more power, more flexibility, more freedom. Yeah. So the scary thing about your friend's situation, and one thing that I found in the past, is that if you work a long time in one company, you are gaining experience that helps that one company. Mm-hmm. And then when you come out and you try to market your skills at different places, either to get a full-time job or to consult, it's out of date or archaic or doesn't make sense. So that's one of the reasons why when I went into consulting, I thought, boy, it could be really dangerous, where you think, hey, I've been working for Google for 15 years or wherever, and there's a sense of security, but is it true? Because things can shift, and if you lose your job, then you find yourself being unmarketable because of all this experience that you had in the past.
Yeah, it's not a situation that I wanted to put myself in. My belief is, if you're good, then you're gonna find a need for what you do. If you're good, then no problem.
I totally agree. And I've always said this. I think being freelance is a meritocracy, because you have the whole marketplace to measure your skills. And not every client's gonna like you, not every place is gonna be a fit, but if you're good, you'll find your way through that.
Yeah. And I think when you're doing that, setting your limits. So I've definitely had clients who are, they say to me, my job is to get you to do as much as I can for as little as I can. And so then they make that clear at the beginning, and then okay, so now I have to have hard and fast rules. This is a line. We're happy to help, but anything after that, we're going to charge you more for. Right. And it's definitely setting those lines and keep following those. The people who you do that extra work for, a lot of times they don't appreciate it or don't care. Yep. They're just like, my job is to get you to do as much as I can without paying you.
Yeah.
So that's one of the kind of growing pains for me here is setting those lines at the very beginning, and then everybody's happy. So
yes.
Yeah. I think as
Yes,
a
and
freelancer.
not to rant too much in toward the full-time work world, but this is true for me. When I first started consulting, I had to learn that too, which is when you're working at whatever company and they ask you to do something, you can't really say no. You just take on more and more and
Yeah,
more. And this is part of the reason why we have universal burnout throughout
yeah,
the industry. But then when you become a consultant, you need to learn that you can say no as long as you set those lines
sure.
in the beginning. And this is why we spend a lot of time with defining what the work is, what the project is, what the deliverables are, on what dates, to make it a clear boundary.
Yeah,
Of course, it's never 100% clear, but that is a huge step in anyone's journey into consulting.
definitely.
And you're a natural entrepreneur, so I'm not expecting that you had a lot of bumps in the road, but did you have other bumps in the road in your consulting journey?
Let me see. So I knew when we started our agency, I would have to create the systems to track everything. So anything from mileage tracking to my employee time tracking. So I knew from our schools in Japan, setting up those systems is really the only way that I can maximize my time. And that's what this is all about, is maximizing pay for the time that I'm giving it. So making sure that all of those systems are in place and they're scalable. So it's not 100% on me. And so that I can take vacations and not have everything fall apart. That clients aren't calling me and expecting, I need you to take care of this today. I'm like,
yeah,
that's tough. So for me, I think I'm always, I don't try and say no. I try and say, yes, it will take this amount of time, which will cost you this much. Please approve. And when you do that, so getting back to those lines, that for me was not saying, no, I'm not going to do this, but it was, yes, we're going to do it. This is how much it's going to cost. And then please approve. And then everybody's happy. They're like, oh yeah, sure.
Right.
So getting the systems in place, then making sure that the lines, that everyone knows our boundaries, but we're welcome, we're happy to do more. So humble, hungry, smart. That's all. Everyone wants to work with people who are those things. So I try and do that in everything, any interaction we have with any client or potential client.
Right. And I think what you said resonates with me too. It was like when I first started my consulting journey, went pretty well, found a few clients, but then found myself after a couple of years having to say no because, I had dedicated a certain amount of time to do this and it was going over. And that's when the light went up in my head. I want to be able to say yes. The but for my clients was, but it won't be me doing this.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be somebody else. So
somebody I trust who, you'll have a great time with too. So that trust bridge is something that I believe in. So the bridge of trust that you build. One of the things I was talking to one of my friends about this discussion, and what she was saying really resonated with me. And that is, when you start, and then the longer you do consulting or any kind of entrepreneurial endeavor, it really can boil down to relationships that you build over time, and being really taking that in, understanding that burning a bridge is not just one bridge. You're burning 500 bridges. So building a bridge is also not one bridge with one person, it's with the 500 people in their network that you're building that bridge with. And when you're just starting off, what do you have to offer those people? So you have, your network, your bridges behind you. So giving access to those people that you know, that's what you can give. That reciprocity is what you can give and gain from.
Right.
So that for me was like, oh yeah, that's right. Big aha moment because of I'm an online guy, but also this the personal relationships that I've built in meeting people and giving of myself. That's how I've received a lot of in return. It's just that's building that referral network of people that know, like, and trust me is really important. So as a consultant, if you're looking at this, this is one of the things that, you know, you might not know what you have to give, but you do. You have people in your life that you can introduce and help out, and that's your network. That's how you help others is how you will be helped. So
exactly, and I think that a lot of people get stuck in the paradigm of, can I help this person with my set of services, right? And marketing is vast and complicated and ever changing. So the chances that one person who you've been introduced to, let's say, is going to be the exact fit for what you provide is might not happen. So early on in my career, just like you're doing, I always thought of it as, when I leave this meeting, I want to be able to help them in some way. If it's not me, hey, I got this big network of people that I can refer them to. Sometimes you have a conversation and you know something because you read an article or you got a tip doing something, and it doesn't, not going to lead to you doing consulting work. But if you can help that person in any way, that builds the bridge, the bridge of trust, right? So what you said is like it's like fundamental tenet, I think, of consulting. So
and for that, I know when I moved back here, I never, in Japan, when we had our schools, I never had to really network to get business. So I never had to go out and meet really people. I would meet people, but our schools were word of mouth based. So we had tons of people come in all the time. It was great. But coming back here, I had to intentionally build relationships for our business and learning those skills. I know it seems like it should be natural, but it's not. You know, to be able to go up in a group of people and be like, hey, what's happening, y'all? That's not something that's normal to me or natural. You know, I'm weirdly Japanese in that respect. I'm listening, but you have to do that because it is a relationship building exercise, basically.
Yeah, and when you're first getting started, you do have to be willing to put yourself out there. You know, I think a lot of people in Silicon Valley, in particular, who've gotten a job for a long time, you become coveted, so other people come to you for work.
Sure.
And that was another thing I learned when I first started. Was like, oh my God, nobody's knocking on my door now. I got to knock on other people's doors. So you gotta grow comfortable with that. I do think that everybody has their own style and way to do it, so they can be comfortable. But I think you're probably a natural just because you have been an entrepreneur in the past.
Probably. I don't know. It is. It's also, I've taken courses on networking and relationship building, and but yes, I don't know. I guess I'm blessed a little. I'm obviously blessed, but we want to make sure that I wanted to make sure that that if you go to a Chamber of Commerce meeting and you throw your card at everybody and walk out, everyone's throwing that crap away, man. You have to take the time to meet one or two people, and all you're doing is asking them questions.
Yeah.
And if they ask you a question, you're like, yeah, that's great, thank you. And you're asking another question. So you're making it more about them than about you. That's a really basic kind of relationship building tactic that I think a lot of people don't understand. When you're in a group of people, you throw your business card at them. If there's no like or trust, there's no business. So what are you doing, bro? you gotta make sure that you're getting something, you're learning about them. That's basically, showing an interest.
Yeah, and I have an analogy for you. Like sometimes you go to an open house, and then you'll see on the kitchen counter or the table, you'll see all these business cards of real estate agents.
Yeah.
And when I look at those array of cards, I'm always like, who would do that? Who would just pick somebody randomly out of 10 business cards? They're never going to do that because they don't know you.
Yep.
They don't. I mean, you would have more success if you were actually at the open house and you just had a conversation with a couple of people. You
Yeah.
have more success. Now, the selling agent might have a problem with that, but I do think that personal connection is something that I fear for future generations. They're not realizing. It just takes a little bit, right? It just takes a little bit of connection there for it to be. My father was an electrical engineering professor, so he used to always talk about connections, like, like the connection is faulty. So to me, a lot of the online connections are faulty. They're not going to flow electricity, right? The flow of electricity only happens through personal human interaction. So yeah, that's great.
There are places where you can learn this, and learning it will give you definitely a leg up on others. I know that going into a group of people, one thing I learned from my brother, who's also an entrepreneur, he has a solar company in the East Bay, was when you're in that group, understand that everyone is judging you at every moment. So if you go in flip-flops, you have signaled to that person, hey, if you ever refer me to your mom, I'm going to show up in flip-flops. I hope that's okay. So every moment of that interaction, even if you're not talking to someone, they're judging you. So you have to understand when you show respect by dressing accordingly, and not, taking out a 2-liter bottle of soda and guzzling it in front of everybody. I've seen all of these things in networking meetings, and you're just like, that person hasn't learned that key lesson, which is you're judged every second, and you can be judged in a good way, or you can be judged in a bad way. So just understand that the decorum, people who believe in decorum, they might very much take note. Just noted.
Yes.
So yeah, understand that when you go to these meetings or meet people, the way you dress, the way you speak, all that stuff is something that, can I introduce you to Ken? I don't know. Right. Yeah. That's, I don't know. You want that. Yeah, definitely.
No problem. For sure. You do, as a consultant, you need to think about how you come across to people. And in every instant, I'm not saying you have to be polished in the grocery store, but it is an important thing in terms of how you project yourself. And especially in those kind of events. Adam, I have a different kind of question for you. And I know that you're building your team, or you constantly have to look for talent.
Sure.
What do you look for? I think you already rattled off the 3 things.
Yeah.
But are there any things you look for in particular, or maybe things that you do before you hire somebody that might be non-traditional?
Obviously, the humble, hungry, smart thing is really important. Always in whatever, if we're looking for talent, in the description, we have one line that shows me if you read it or not. And if you didn't, then it's an automatic no. It just asks for you to do one specific thing in your response. So it's not like dance like a chicken or something. It's, give me one example of whatever. So that way I know that it's not, they took the time to actually read, because if they didn't, then really probably we're not going to be a good fit. For me, the humble, hungry, smart, that's in our ads. When we're looking for talent is, we are looking for people who are hungry, humble, and smart. That's, that is, if you're all 3 of those, we're perfect. But if you're only 2, if you're not humble, then we're not going to have a good relationship at the beginning. So
Where do you,
yeah, that has served me well.
where do you feel like people mostly fall down in the three
Hungry.
criteria? Hungry?
Yeah, because if you're hungry, you're willing to take the time to read that ad and to respond to it in a unique way or accordingly, right? So following the instructions or whatever. But if you're not hungry, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those, and if you're not hungry, then, you know, I can't, all of my staff, they're remote. And so we have ways of tracking their work and stuff. But yeah, if they're not hungry, you know, they can say, yeah, I want to work whatever, 30 hours a week. But if in reality they want to work 10 and we budgeted 30, then we got a problem, right?
Yeah.
So don't, you know, that kind of stuff. Hungry. I like hungry, but I like humble and I like smart. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a friend who worked in an agency and hired a lot of people. And he said that was the only thing he looked for. He was saying, like, if somebody is hungry, they can overcome almost anything. But if they don't have the hunger, then it's always going to end badly. And he went through all these examples of people that, like, if you just judged on resume, you would have picked other people. But he always looked for the underdog, hungry person looking to improve themselves and work harder to you know, to be successful. And that's been true for me too. It's like finding the people who have that desire and hunger, want to do a good job, will go the extra mile. They're always the ones that succeed.
I love that when people respond and say, I'm humble, hungry, and smart. It's okay to say that. You know, you don't have to signify it in a way. You just say, yeah, I am I mean, for our clients, before we sign clients, it's part of our email. Yeah, we are hungry, humble, and smart. And it's people definitely respond to it, and yeah, I do too. I do. So, you know.
Yeah. And you know, again, not to be too Silicon Valley centric, like there's a lot of smart people here. Like there's no shortage for smart people here, right? Like,
I believe it.
You know, somebody made the joke, like if you were in a crowd and you threw something, you're probably going to hit a few PhDs. There's just a lot of smart, educated people.
Sure.
So to me, it's like the hunger is the thing that is it's harder to find in this area. Yeah.
How about humble?
Humble's tricky because you can't always tell who's humble from meeting them the first time. There are some tells. I mean, for me, the tells are, can you listen? Can you be quiet and like absorb something and actually be a good listener, which is a really important key skill for being a good consultant.
Sure.
And I find the people who are not humble have a real hard time with that.
I like to hear, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great one too.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay. That's okay to say, I don't know. Right. I don't know, but I'll find out. I mean, that's, you know, for me, that's a signifier of being humble. Being able to say, I don't know.
And that was another thing early in my consulting career where I would put a lot of pressure on myself when I would have meetings, because I would be worried that hey, I'm the expert now. This person's paying me money. I got to answer everything. But then I learned that same phrase you used, I don't know, but I will find out. But the asterisk I put on that is the minute the meeting would end, I would start doing the work to get the answer, knowing that the clock is ticking there. Because if you don't demonstrate you can go find the answer quickly, somebody else will. So then that opens the door for a different expert. So it is important to respond quickly if you don't know. 100%. Yeah. So I don't want to take too much of your time. This has been awesome, Adam. Cool. It's like, I think a lot of people learn from this session. My last question for you is, do you have a dream client? And if you do, who would that be?
So our agency focuses on local SEO for brick and mortar companies. So it could be clinics or law firms. I like, so a dream client, I guess, would be basically another nationwide chain of stores. So of whatever, basically, we can help with each one of those locations. They come to us with problems. So clients that we have that are national chains like that, I love it because they're like, hey, we're going to open up 3 more stores. And I go, great.
Right.
We can help with that. It's not even a question. When we do consult for larger national chains and they already have SEO and their team in place, there's always problems, there's always mistakes, and it's always amazing that even those super large companies, they will go with another large company who will not serve them very well. So right. Those are always nice because I can definitely, we're scalable, so we can hire people to help that. So our niche is local SEO and getting local relevance, and which brings in local business.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. And that's it's a very clear target on who you're looking for, which is also a good sign for a good thing for consultants to have a really crisp, this is who I'm looking for, this is what I provide, right? And
yeah, I like it.
In the beginning stages, that's a trick to try to get to that point.
Well, you have to know what SEO is, and a lot of times people don't know it. So I do a podcast, just like probably everybody else. It's a 10-minute weekly podcast. It's for solopreneurs, or we have marketing people who listen to it. It covers one topic every week. It's called Local SEO in 10, usually about 10 minutes, usually actually maybe about 14 minutes. It's tough to stay within that 10, but I try.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that for a few years now, and it's great. It's fun to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll hopefully anybody watching this will check that out.
Please. Yes.
Yeah. Adam, do you have anything else that you wanted to share before we go, or?
No, that's great. I had a great time. Thank you for inviting me here. That's awesome.
Okay.
I think this is great. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Bye.
All right.